Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to everyone joining from different parts of the world. I am delighted to welcome you all to today's webinar on the topic Meet the Editor's Insights on the Current Topic in Human Resource Management. I'm Anika Suhail. I'm an assistant professor at Human Resource Studies Department at Tilburg University, the Netherlands. I'm also serving as the HR Division Ambassador Program Representative in the Executive Committee of HR Division Academy of Management and also HR Division Ambassador for Pakistan. Joining me in organizing and moderating today's session are two esteemed colleagues also from HR Division Ambassador Program. The first one is Dr. Yusuf Hassan, Assistant Professor at Heroit Watt University, serving as the HR Division Ambassador for UAE. The second one is Dr. Jiang Wang, Associate Professor at Beijing Institute of Technology, serving as the HR Division Ambassador for China. Today's webinar marks the second in the series of webinars organized by HR Division Ambassadors aimed at fostering scholarly dialogue and collaboration in the field of human resource management. We are thrilled to continue this initiative and look forward to future sessions, especially organized for the HR scholars in Global South. We are privileged to host a panel of distinguished editor-in-chief and associate editors from leading management and HR journals. These scholars have made significant contribution to the academic community and have profoundly influenced the discourse in the field of management and HR with their expertise. I'm confident that, just like myself, you will be eager to gain insights from our esteemed scholars today. Before I formally invite them, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to each of the speakers for graciously accepting my invitation to share their knowledge and experience with us today. It's a great honor and empowerment for early career scholars like myself. The agenda for today's webinar is very simple. We will begin by following the presentation in sequence by each speaker displayed on the screen already. And it will be followed by a question answer session, which will be moderated by my colleague, Yusuf. And please feel free to share your questions using question answers chat function in the Zoom. And finally, we will have closing remarks by our colleague, Dr. Jiang. Without further ado, I am honored to introduce our first speaker, Professor Fang Cooke. She is the Distinguished Professor at Faculty of Business and Economics, Monash University, Melbourne, Australia. Professor Cooke serves as the Editor-in-Chief of Human Resource Management in Asia Pacific Journal of Human Resources. She has been recognized among the top 2% of the scientists globally for research citation, impact, and recently ranked number 2 worldwide for the past 5 years in HRM specialty by Scholar GPS. Her research encompasses a wide range of HRM topics, including strategic human resource management, international human resource management, employment relation, diversity, and future of work. Professor Cooke, we are very honored to have you with us today. And now I warmly welcome you to share your insights with us.
For papers that have not been kind of sent out for review, our turnaround time is about 12 days on average from first submission to desk rejection or to the first decision. That including the administrative editorial assistants screening the paper, making sure everything is correct, and then pass on to the editor-in-chief, etc. So the average time is 12 days. We are hoping to make it a bit quicker in the future. We have just transitioned to the REX system, so it caused a bit of a disruption and delay a little bit. But on the whole, our turnaround time is quite quick. We have top 5 countries, authors from top 5 countries. United States continue to be number 1, China number 2, United Kingdom number 3, representing 13% of the papers, and then Australia and Germany. So then that's the brief introduction of the journal, but for more detailed information, you can look at the journal webpage. But here I want to use the precious 12 minutes time maximum that I was allowed to talk about the HRM research trends, because the organizer was asking me to to briefly mention the trends in the strategic HRM research. But I feel that the HRM research is not just in the strategic HRM field. There are several lines of inquiry here in the past. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time in talking about this figure, because it can last a whole hour at least. For those who are interested, you can look at the editorial paper in 2023 that I have published together with Michael Dickman and Emma Perry. This figure here is the original figure that I draft, and slightly different from the published paper, but more or less just one strand is different. All the others are the same. So basically, we have initially firm-oriented HRM, moving towards more and more towards employee-oriented HRM in the research. And the top line of inquiry is very, very conceptual, very theoretical, theory-driven. The second line of inquiry is more related to well-being, especially after the COVID-19. And there has been strong interest in focusing on employee well-being and resilience, thriving, etc. But these 5 lines of inquiries, they are not separated from each other. Some of the research may straddle across different lines of inquiry, but for clarity, I just try to summarize them in different kind of themes, basically. Then a third theme is like equal opportunity, diversity management, and inclusion. So this line of inquiry is more focusing on the employee rights and social justice. But increasingly, there is also a business case approach towards diversity and inclusion. But there is debate about whether that is the good way forward or not. And fundamentally, there is an issue about social justice and employees' rights, fundamental rights, in being treated fairly and free from discrimination, etc. This covers not only gender, but also older workers, which is also a hot topic at the moment, because, well, not just at the moment, it has been starting to attract interest in the last 10 years. But as the population is aging and the workforce is aging, then successful aging has been a hot topic in European countries, and also in the United States as well. But there are differences between the research focus from US-based scholars to the European-based scholars. The US-based scholars more focus on the psychological impact, very much influenced by the OB, organizational behavior, while the European country scholars, for example, including scholars from the Netherlands, Germany, France, they are more interested in the kind of social rights and social justice, and also the social policy dimension. So you can see that different continents actually are influenced by different institutional contexts. So therefore, scholars, their focus can also be quite different. And that will also have implications for scholars who are based in the Middle East, in China, in India, and other developing countries. So context is really important in the HRM research that we have been arguing for, and other scholars have been arguing for some time. The fourth line of inquiry is sustainable HRM, more recently, common good HRM. And so that is in line with these sustainable development goals of the United Nations. So this line of inquiry actually overlaps to some extent with the equal opportunity and well-being line as well. Then the last line of inquiry is the technological oriented. Recently, certainly HRM received a lot of submissions, particularly from China, on AI and algorithmic management and HRM. So this is the line of the technology-driven kind of line of inquiry that has become popular. But even within the technology line, you can see that they are changing from the earlier about HR data analytics to now more AI and algorithmic management. So, and there will be other extension as well in the future of what may be the new element of or the new circle of these lines of inquiry. So just a very quick overview of major lines of inquiry in the HRM research. But this is by no means a comprehensive summary of the HRM field, but just a few of the key lines of inquiry so that you know where your research may fit. Then we also have several special issues in progress in human resource management. In 2024, we have 3 special issues in submission. So, for example, the HRM in the front line. Basically, for human resource management as a journal, we have we accept 3 to 4 proposals for a special issue each year, and we will we will focus on the conceptual dimension or the theoretical dimension of the HRM field. We also cover the types of workforce or the industry. And then we also like to cover phenomenon that is new or trendy. So like in 2014, we had the special issue submission on quiet quitting. And that special issue was accepted in 2023. And that was at the time when COVID-19 was just coming to an end, and many workers are feeling tired, exhausted, and emotionally run down, and quiet quitting become a typical phenomenon. So that is a very example of a very topical kind of HRM issue we focus on. Moving to this year, 2025, we have total compensation in a post-pandemic world because companies are being kind of financially hardened in hard world, in hardship. So maybe reward is not the only thing that they can give to employee in terms of financial compensation. Maybe total reward can be, or total compensation will be a more effective way for both the company and the employees. So that's the special issue that has just passed the submission deadline. The other special issue we have is scaling up, and that is a kind of company. There has not been much research about scaling up, firms scaling up. We have seen many studies about downsizing, so that is scaling down. But scaling up, it will also have quite a lot of implications for HRM. So we have a special issue on that. The deadline for submission has just been closed. And then currently there is a special issue. The deadline has not been closed yet, and it is about the ripple effect of and the HRM and social cohesion beyond workplaces, because the world is increasingly divided and there is a lot of tension due to the geopolitical kind of tension more broadly. Then also next year, we will have 3 special issues that are upcoming. One is on the conceptual and review issues. We want to extend the conceptual and theoretical side of the HRM field. So that is why we have a special issue devoted just for the conceptual and review papers, including perspective papers. Then we also have a special issue, which is actually led by me, and it's about violence. And so it's from workplace-based violence to work-based violence. So basically, we want to extend the view a little bit beyond the workplace. And then we also have another special issue on virtual work, because after COVID-19, virtual working become the norm almost. But there is also at the same time pressure from companies to ask employees to return to the office. So there are a lot of issues there that we can explore. Now I want to move to the common reason for desk rejection for submissions to HRM, the journal. We receive over 1,000 submissions a year on average, and about 75% to 80%, usually about 75% of the papers are desk rejected for several reasons. About 40% of the papers that are desk rejected are because they are rejected because they are not HRM related. So there is some distinct differences between human resource management and organizational behavior. Of course, human resource management policies and practices are there to help elicit employees' organizational behavior. But if a paper is solely about OB without any HRM practices as part of the model, then we don't accept it for review. Another reason for the paper to be desk rejected is the introduction is very poorly crafted and usually start with a lot of the practical significance of the study and not much about the kind of what, why, how, and so what intellectually, theoretically. Another reason for the desk rejection is the research design lacks rigor and the conceptual model is poorly described or actually very thin. That is partly because the literature review is very weak. They only cover a very limited amount of literature. And particularly for papers from China and other developing countries, especially the papers written by PhD students, they tend to, and sometimes students and scholars from non-HRM field, they tend to include literature from all over the place, except from HRM journals, right? There is nothing wrong with including references or literature from other field, from engineering field, from OB field, from the economic field. But if you are aiming for HRM journal and do not cite any papers from HRM journals, you're missing out the dialogue with the HRM scholars there, right? So it might be better off for the paper to be submitted elsewhere. And it also is an indication of the authors not being familiar with the field. And hypotheses are very basic, and that's another problem. Very limited theoretical contribution, and that is one of the main components we look at when we reject the paper. And also there is very thin kind of practical implications. Now, HRM, the journal, pride itself as a bridging journal to bridge or connect the HRM theory and research with HRM practices. So we expect authors to provide a substantial section on practical implications that are helpful for managers or for organizations. Importantly, there are other issues with the authors from mainly developing countries is they're not familiar with the target journal style, whether it is HRM or other journals. They have not even read the guideline, and they just tick the box to say they have read the guideline. But please read the guideline for the authors before you submit the article, and also read some articles from the journal before you submit the paper. Poor English is another main issue. These days, poor English should not be the reason. Well, there is no reason to produce papers with poor English because there are Grammarly and other kind of software that you can use to help improve the English, but not with the writing. Okay, titles being very convoluted, very mechanistically summarizing basically your model and your methods, and there is no narrative in it about your paper. So we just reject paper not for one reason, but for multiple reasons. And if you have tick box for this more than 4 of the reasons that listed above, then that is most likely to be desk rejected. I have to say that some authors from, maybe I should not name any country, we sometimes receive emails, angry emails from authors to say that how dare you reject my paper, etc., etc. Very, very emotional. But the thing is that if they have read other people's paper that have been published and read the guideline and read their own paper, they may realize eventually that their paper is quite far away from being acceptable to be sent out for review yet. So I think my 12 minutes is run out, so I will stop there and I'll stop sharing as well.
Thank you so much, Fang, for sharing comprehensive insights and especially about human resource management as a journal. And really like how you have shared special issue calls and also the desk rejections and why it happens. I think I particularly want to thank you for sharing the diverse and thought-provoking ideas on the evolving landscape of human resource management. I'm sure it has enlightened me and all the other participants as well, but also inspire us for the future ideas that we can work on in the field of human resource management. Thank you so much for doing that. I can now call our second speaker for today's webinar, which is Professor Kaifeng Jiang from Peking University Chair Professor of Organization and Strategic Management in Guanghua School of Management. Professor Yang is a leading scholar of strategic human resource management. Currently, he is serving as the associate editor of Personnel Psychology and has extensive editorial experience in leading HR and management journals, including Academy of Management, Journal of Management, Journal of Applied Psychology, and the list will go on. So you can look at his bio as well. His contribution has been widely recognized, and he's elected as the Fellow of Society for Industrial and Organizational Psychology in 2024. Kaifeng is also serving as the chair of the Executive Committee of HR Division at Academy of Management this year. So if you are planning to go to Academy of Management, yeah, you will have the honor of meeting all these panelists, hopefully live as well. Kaifeng, we are very delighted to have you today with us and looking forward to your insights.
Yeah, thank you very much, Anika, for the introduction, and hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's session. First of all, I would like to thank Anika, Yusuf, and Ying for organizing today's webinar. The Ambassador Program is a very unique initiative. HR division started more than 15 years ago. I'm very glad to see more ambassadors join the program and help HR division to connect to more HR scholars all over the world. So if you're interested in serving for the HR division, feel free to reach out to all the ambassadors in your respective countries. You can find a list from HR division's website, and you also feel free to just talk to any executive members of the HR division. So today is a great pleasure for me to speak with fellow scholars from Asia and Middle East as the associate editor of Personnel Psychology. And as Fang did, I would like to first briefly introduce Personnel Psychology. I will share with you what we look for in submissions and how the review process works, and some common pitfalls to avoid so that your work has the best chance of success if you submit papers to Personnel Psychology. And our current editor-in-chief is Professor Jiang from Southern Methodist University. And you can see the rest of the AE for the journal on this slide. And our term will end by the end of this year. Sometimes you don't realize how fast time flies. And right now, the journal is selecting the new EIC. And starting from the January, you will have a new EIC with a new AE team. But basically, the whole process and procedure of journal review submission will be quite consistent. And Personnel Psychology is also the journal Wiley. And I think all three journals today are journal Wiley. And PSYCH is one of the leading journals in the field of organizational behavior and human resource management. So we focus on rigorous, impactful research that helps us better understand people at work. And Fang just mentioned HRM specifically focus on submissions that are relevant to HR. But for P-Site, we're also interested in some OB topics. So if they're related to people at work, even though it's OB paper, we'll put them into the review process. So our mission is to publish research that advances theory, provides strong empirical evidence, and delivers actionable insights for employees, managers, and organizations. So among all the paper published in our journal, roughly 75% are empirical studies. And usually they are multi-study papers using survey, archival, field, or experimental data. And about 10% are meta-analysis, and 5% are narrative reviews, and the rest include theoretical papers. And yes, we do publish theoretical papers and some qualitative research. And typically, paper published in PSEC focuses on individual level or team level phenomena. And by recent years, we do publish studies that are conducted at the macro level or meso level studies, as long as the topics are related to people at work, this general theme. These less common types studies are actually growing, especially qualitative papers and macro meso level research. So every year, just give me a second. My mouse is a little bit, okay. So every year we receive around 600 submissions. That means each AE will handle about 75 to 80 submissions every year, which is a lot of work. And about 40% will be thus rejected, and meaning they don't go out for review for all kind of reasons Fang just to share with us. Of the remaining articles, roughly 13% receive a revise and resubmit opportunity, and the final acceptance rate is only 4%. This is based on the data last year. It's very competitive, but not impossible. So if you really have a high quality article, and we encourage you to send it to our journal for the first option, not as like backup option if you got rejected from other journals. And to manage the volume of the review assignments, we actually heavily rely on the services of our editorial review board members. And our board consists of over 210 members from 118 universities across 15 countries. And additionally, we employ hundreds of ad hoc reviewers to enhance the efficiency of the review process. So if you are interested in doing some review work, eventually you join the editorial review board, and feel free to reach out to the EIC and just to send an email to say, hey, I'm interested in serving the journal and to do more reviews. My expertise include this and that. And then the EIC every month will compile a list of the ad hoc reviewers and to share with all the AEs. And then you may get invited to review for the journals. If you got good record, and every year we can update the editorial review board, so you can get a chance to be added to the editorial review boards. So we strive to help to keep the average turnaround time for the first decision within 6 days. I checked the stats last year. We actually did a very good job, and this is not including the articles have been destined rejected. This is only for those that been put into the review process. So the turnaround time for the first decision was actually only 38 days. To assist our readers and potential contributors, we also organized the paper development workshops. So last year we had a workshop at King's College London, and they were our sponsor. And this year, it will be sponsored by Hong Kong Polytechnic University, and it will be in May. So we have already selected all the participants. We have organized all the groups. So if you are one of us, feel free to join the workshop in May. And also besides the regular submissions, we also publish a special issue, but only one special issue annually, and not like Fang's journal. HRM published many interesting topics. These are the topics of our published and ongoing special issues. And the deadline for the last one is in August. So if you have related topics or articles, please consider submitting them to this special issue. And from the next slide, and this one just to show some stats about the authors who have published in our journal, especially in the past 5 years. As you can see here, since 2020, 174 articles have been published, and more than 550, I think, it's 534, 39 authors from 79 authors from 31 countries and regions have contributed to the journal. And these are the major contributors to the journal during this time period. So typically, if you see a particular scholar's name, basically means they have published more than one article. And this slide just contains the authors primarily from the universities all over the country and primarily from the United States, but we do have authors from Asia, like Asia Pacific region, like Australia, China, Hong Kong, Singapore, South Korea, and we got someone from Canada or European countries like UK, Germany, Netherlands, Switzerland, and several other countries, including UAE. And this slide just to shows the topics of articles published in the past 5 years. Some notable themes include leadership, ethical or unethical behavior, well-being, creativity, diversity, turnover. These are more OB-oriented articles, topics. There are also some HR-related topics such as recruitment, selection, compensation, job search, and a little bit about strategic HR. And we can also see some emerging topics include machine learning, remote work. The machine learning one is actually came from one of our special issue. And in terms of research methods, I was surprised to see experience sampling. It's one of the most commonly used method for paper published in PSYCH. And you can also see meta-analysis is also a featured methodology in this figure. So in general, we consider personal psychology is widely established and often regarded as a top-tier journal worldwide. So for example, universities like Texas and A&M and the University of Georgia, they have a list to rank management department productivity. So PSYCH is one of 8 journals used in the calculation of the rankings. And PSYCH is also listed with 4-star rating or A-star rating on several other lists, considered as a very high quality journal, even though it is not included in the UTD list. I know after I returned to China's mainland, I found many Asian universities, including the university in China, are fascinated about the UTD list. We're not on the UTD list. We're not even on the FT50 list. But if you ask anyone from R1 school in the United States, and basically they would consider PSYCH as a journal. So next, all right. So for this one, we want to briefly compare PSYCH to other journals, journals such as AMJ, OBHDP, and Org Science. In terms of preference, I think PSYCH, similar to HRM, places a very high value on applied implications for organizations. So this means in addition to highlighting the contributions of the articles, no matter it's a theoretical contribution, empirical contribution, or methodological rigor of the research, and we really hope the papers published in PSYCH can provide some strong, actionable, and very practical implications for managers and organizations. So based on that, and these are three main things we used to evaluate manuscript submitted to the journal. So first, and we want the paper to have a strong and enough theoretical contribution, which means the paper can either shift the consensus or build a new consensus. This is actually from the former editor-in-chief of PSYCH, John Hollenbeck, back to many years ago, in one book chapter, and he proposed two basic ways to make theoretical contribution. So when you send the paper to the journal, you may ask yourself, would your paper make readers think differently about a very well-established issue? And would it help unify fragmented literature? So the hook must be very clear in the abstract and in the first few paragraphs in the introduction section. If you only consider extending a study just slightly beyond what we have already know, and this probably will not be enough. So you need a very strong conceptual leap in order to make a theoretical contribution. And then your methods, your design, your analysis must match your questions very well, and then offer a robust test of your theory. Sometimes we got question like whether PSYCH, in order to publish in PSYCH, you have to have multiple studies or multiple data set samples. I don't think that is a requirement. A single study will also be acceptable, but only if it's very well designed. So you need to avoid some common design weaknesses like common source bias or samples with very low generalizability, especially a single study design without triangulation or robustness checks. Finally, PSYCH is unique among top-tier journals I already mentioned. So we emphasize practical implications. It's very important. You offer something that can help the practitioners to do the job in the daily work. So this is roughly about the introduction of the journal. If you want to get more information, you can refer to this one, this list, and the facilitator also encouraged me to talk a little bit about the future direction of strategic HR. I had one paper back to 2018. I mentioned there are basically 5 different focuses in the future. I still feel all of these are still relevant. For example, I feel we have already know enough about the mediating process. So maybe we should focus more on the moderators. And we also have enough static one-time data collection studies, but we need more papers focusing on the dynamic process and how the effects of HR or how the adoption of HR change over time. We also need to focus on how the new technology, no matter it's big data analysis, HR analytics, or right now artificial intelligence, how this can be incorporated into the general research questions, strategic HR. Finally, I want to show you this bibliometrics analysis result. So this is based on papers published in top-tier journals in the past 10 years. I use strategic HR, HR systems, human capital as a key search word. As you can see here, strategic HR, traditional strategic HR, only a few articles, and more scholars started to focus on human capital itself. And there is emergence literature on strategic human capital resources. So basically, if you do HR research right now at macro level, firm level, it's very likely that you're going to use a theoretical perspective from a strategic human capital resources. And related to that, there is a group of scholars, they focus on mobility issues, such as internal, external labor market, promotion, turnover, especially collective turnover, collective promotion. And then another group of scholars focused on starting employees and how starting employees influence their own career outcomes, co-workers, firm outcome, firm performance. And finally, if you look at the strategy literature, there are still some scholars try to understand human capital from a strategic management perspective, but focusing on things like generic or from specific human capital and how to motivate and encourage people to invest in certain kind of human capital. I will stop right here and see if you have any kind of questions. You can put your question into the chat.
Thank you so much, Kaifeng, for profound and comprehensive insights into the Personnel Psychology Journal. I'm sure your insights and in-depth overview of the journal, current focus, especially highlighting what kind of papers they accept, is very valuable for all the participants. I especially want to thank you for practical guidance and also highlighting the pitfall that you have offered. And I'm impressed by the bibliometric analysis that you have also shared from top tier journals and the topics that are very relevant for all scholars like myself who want to publish in all these journals. Thank you so much once again. Before we move on, as Kaifeng also said, please use the question answers function of the Zoom to share your questions. And after our third speaker, we will open the question answer forum. Thank you. Moving further, last but not the least, I'm very pleased to introduce Professor Dr. Maike Andresen, Chair of Human Resource Management and Organization Behavior at University of Bamberg, Germany. Professor Andresen is a leading scholar of international human resource management with the research focus on global mobility, career, and work flexibilization. She serves as an associate editor of Human Resource Management Journal and also International Journal of Human Resource Management. She has published in all top tier journals as well and has I'm sure very wonderful insights to share with us. We are very honored to have Maike with you with us today and looking forward to seek some insights from you. Floor is yours.
I think, Professor, you are muted.
Let's see.
Yeah.
So, as always, technical problems, but we will solve them. So now I think you see a preview, right? Yeah, that's strange because that should not be the case. I change it again. Oh, that's strange. How can I change that?
Maike, we see.
And Maike, actually, I think we saw your slides.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Because I had the feeling that there's a preview mode, but it seems to work. Okay. Good. So thank you again, Annika and Yusuf and Ying for the organization of this session. I think that's really valuable, and I'm also inspired by the presentations of Fang, Cooke, and by Kaifeng Jiang. So I also learned. So thanks a lot for that. So I'm happy to be involved. And I have the honor to present two journals at the same time. So as you said, the International Journal of Human Resource Management and Human Resource Management Journal, two journals in the HRM field, some similarities, but also some differences. And that's what I want to focus on in the next minutes. So let's start maybe with the areas of interest, and you will see that there's a lot of overlap. So I really tried to compare both journals, and you see that they are very broad. So they cover submissions in the field of human resource management, could be strategic human resource management, international human resource management, sustainable human resource management, people analytics, AI, etc. So all of this field of human resource management, but also industrial relations, employee relations, voice, in both journals, also talent management and leadership, careers. But now there's a distinction because in the International Journal of Human Resource Management, they also accept papers with that deal with HR-related aspects of organizational change, organizational culture, organizational behavior. So that's less the case for HRMJ, where we really focus on HR-related papers. And I want to stress one thing, because sometimes people are confused by the title of the International Journal of Human Resource Management. Some think that you can only submit international studies, but it's the International Journal of Human Resource Management, not the Journal of International HRM. So that means, it just means that we take in papers from all over the world, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to submit an international or content-wise international aspects. These are welcome, but it's not the focus. Yeah, in terms of general advice, how to publish, I wanted to connect that right away. So when you submit, I think that's a general rule, pick the right journal. So really look at the profiles, and you saw different profiles today of the different journals. So try to really take the one that fits your study, and then follow the submission instructions, and also look for some published papers. So what has been published in these journals? And then my advice is really to connect to the discourse in the specific journal. And these are slightly different, as I will show in a minute, so that you really cite the articles that have been published in the journal where you submit, and that you connect, not only drop in names, but that you really connect to the discourse. Yeah, and focus on the mission of these journals. There are some key drivers. I don't know. Yeah, I don't. This should be the one. I'm a bit confused because my screen is different from yours. So, but I think you should now see the emerging topics in strategic HRM. So, this is very similar to Fang, what she presented. So I just can repeat it. It's exactly the same as she said. These are the key drivers that I see. Maybe in addition, climate change. I think that's a topic that we should deal with more in the future, because it has an impact on job design. Just think about the temperatures that change in countries. What does that mean in terms of working conditions, climate refugees? But also, can we still afford international traveling, business traveling, or should we think in terms of climate change? It also has implications for health risks. So some people cannot cope with other with storms, or suffer in terms of health just due to the temperatures. So that's one topic I think that should be added. But the other topics are exactly as Fang mentioned: integration of technology. Also the impact of remote work. So what does that mean in terms of talent acquisition and development when we're spread all over the different countries and continents? And also the prioritization of employee well-being, health issues, well-being issues, but also inclusive workplaces. So that's a huge discussion at the moment when we look at the US, and diversity, equity, inclusion is, yeah, I think there's more room to discuss that topic. So what does that all mean? So, and maybe also well-being in international mobility, for example, that's also important. To get a feeling what is up to date, I think it's worthwhile to check the United Nations and the Sustainable Development Goals. HR is really involved in many of these SDGs, so, and that gives some guideline. In terms of the papers that can be submitted, just the types of articles, there are some distinctions between these two journals. So the original articles could be theory papers, empirical papers, quant and qual. These are can be submitted to both journals. you see that the length of the journals differ a bit between these two, but in general, these are very similar kinds of papers, review papers. So all is fine. But the Human Resource Management Journal has some additional kinds of papers that are not typical for the International Journal of Human Resource Management. So for example, in HRMJ, we have invited papers. So then you need to wait for an invitation by the editor-in-chief who asks you, for example, for a review or for a provocation paper where you stimulate the debate and maybe propose a new way forward to the future. But these are usually distinguished scholars who are invited. But we also have an HRMJ, we have registered reports. That means that you, don't take me verbally, but half papers, so to say, in the first step. So the first stage up to the methods, where you report what you will do or want to do. And then you get a review. And if there is, in principle, an acceptance, you can submit the full paper later on, collect data, do the analysis, and then submit the full paper. So this is a two-step approach. And what's also interesting in HRMJ is that we have methodology papers. So whenever you have something where you think the methodology and HRM research could be improved, then also think about to submit that to HRMJ. And there's another specificity in HRMJ is that they accept large author consortia, because that's sometimes interesting. It might be that you are, for example, a member of the Globe study that involves 160 countries, and you can imagine the long list of authors, or the 5C research group, or the Granite study, whatever it is, where you have 50 or 200, 300 authors. Some journals do not accept this, but the HRMJ is welcoming that kinds of papers. Both journals also have special issues currently. You can find them on the webpage as you expected. So just to mention some keywords, in the International Journal of Human Resource Management, we have open calls for meaningful work. That's an issue that came up with the pandemic, where people thought more about their careers and whether this is really what they want to do. So this special issue focuses on meaningful work. Another special issue in the International Journal of Human Resource Management is about gig work and international perspectives of gig work. Then another one is about grand societal challenges and disruptions and what this means for HRM. So that's really the big picture. Sustainable global careers, and another one about repatriate management. And also the Human Resource Management Journal has two current special issues. One is focusing on AI technologies in human resource management, and the other one, a methods papers on scale development in HRM research. So that shows that HRM has both content-related articles, but also methods papers. So feel free to submit. And I know that in several countries, supervisors expect PhD candidates, for example, or also postdocs to produce a methods paper. So that adds to the profile, not just content, but also that they show that they're good in methods. Yeah, some specifics maybe, again, to compare, as Kaifeng and Fang already stressed, the role of theory is very important in order to get through the reviewing system in a successful manner. In the International Journal of Human Resource Management, we really focus on a theoretical framework, so that you have in quant papers that you have a good theory, and ideally one theory, not 2, 3, or 4, but one theory, that you use this theory to develop your hypotheses, that you refer back to this theory to discuss your findings. The same happens in the Human Resource Management Journal, but here we expect even more. We expect also theory development, not just a discussion with reference to the theory, but also how can the theory that you used be improved based on your study. We expect more a discussion also at the meta level. For example, that you link your study to Coleman's boat, micro, meso, macro level, or it's pretty much related to philosophy or science. So really at the meta level that you add to this. So it's a little bit more challenging to write these papers. Yeah, what about cross-sectional data? Kaifeng also mentioned that. So both journals would say there are some inherent biases in cross-sectional or single source data. So try to avoid that. However, both journals will accept these kind of papers. So that's good news. But if you have cross-sectional data or single source data, then you should really justify that so that you have a good research model, or also that you show the potential for theoretical contribution. So that needs to be very strong in that case. However, of course, multi-wave, multi-source, multi-level data is welcome. But as said, we would also accept the other one. Yeah, so what does that mean for you? General advice. Theoretical grounding. So really explain the theory. And I said, ideally one theory, unless you have a very good argument why you combine two. But this is usually, it's tricky. So try to take one or a framework and also explain the concepts that you have, and don't have too many concepts at the same time that you don't explain, so that readers cannot really understand what the differences are. So focus. Also look at the literature. I think the worst is that reviewers say, well, there are a lot of publications that the authors overlooked. So really look at the literature, the most recent literature, past 10 years. Avoid very old literature, but mainly the past 10 years. And then really include it, not name dropping, but really use the literature. And also in terms of methodology, really try to use a good methodology, also use some methods, sources to justify your choice, have very good data, no salami slicing, as we say. So if you do salami slicing, that means that you use the same data set in 4, 5, 6 papers, then you really need to make that transparent. But be careful with the data. So try to have good data and then present that, maybe even ideally unusual data that is really interesting, where you think, oh, we have very few studies about that. And then show how you connect theory and data. Also, I want to add that you add your USP, so to have something new to say, the contribution either to theory, to the methods, or to HR practices. So that is really an interesting study that you challenge maybe how we look at human resource management at the moment, and how we should look at it differently. Sometimes I see that authors insult previous or older authors, so maybe don't do that, because if you say it's all rubbish that has been published so far, I'm the first one to do something meaningful. So there's a high risk that the reviewer might be one of them. So rather find a good content-related reason why you do this study. Yeah, and in terms of this study really have an interesting story. Maybe start with one example, to start with the citation in the beginning, refer back to the discussion, so that there's a nice storyline. And maybe this citation is even reflected in the title. That's what Fang also mentioned, that you have an interesting title that catches the attention. And I think the other ones have been mentioned before. What I realize sometimes, we do plagiarism checks, so avoid to copy sentences from other publications, but formulate on your own. Sometimes it looks like a rainbow. Then I see that 2 sentences are taken from one source, the other 2 sentences from the next source. So, and then I have this plagiarism check. So really check that again, that you have a good description. Yeah, and in terms of the metrics, you see that these 2 journals are really different. So the International Journal of Human Resource Management has 22 issues per year. So that's that's enormous. So they take in a high number of submissions, of course, and publish many articles, whereas the Human Resource Management Journal has 4 issues per year. So it's much more selective in that way. The impact factor is similar, so 4.9 for the International Journal of Human Resource Management and higher for the Human Resource Management Journal with 5.4. And also this is reflected in the rankings. So similar, but the Human Resource Management Journal is a 4-star journal in comparison to the International Journal, which is a 3-star journal. The acceptance rate is similar, but the desk reject rate is very different. So we get fewer submissions to the Human Resource Management Journal, which leads to lower desk reject rates. In the International Journal of Human Resource Management, we have desk rejects of 70 to 80%, very high. But this is because the articles do not follow the typical standard, the structure of articles, or they are not mature enough. So if you follow what the 3 editors said today, I think this will not happen to you, but I really want to create this awareness. Please give your article maybe to an advanced scholar so that this person can check. Yeah, top authors, as in the other cases, we want to have more papers from Asia, not from the Western part and from Europe. We have, this is a majority, but from all other parts of the world. So that would be great if you submit. You will get, if you get into the reviewing process, you will get 2 reviews in the International Journal and even 3 reviews by the Human Resource Management Journal. So you can really learn from that. And what I also want to motivate you just to make the calculation. You submit, you get 3 reviews. That means that you owe the community 3 reviews. And I think that's a calculation, but I think it's a good one because you learn a lot from doing reviews. So just try to involve yourself. So thank you. I want to stop here and rather answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maike. Thank you for the enlightening presentation and sharing the valuable insights on the current topic of interest and editorial experience. I'm sure, like myself, everyone will agree that you have done very good justice with representing both the journals, and you did it wonderfully. I especially like the practical advice, also general advice to publish in these journals. They are very helpful and insightful, and these insights will definitely help all of us to polish our work and also navigate the publication process in these prestigious journals. Thank you so much. I know Kaifeng has to leave, so I'll give the floor to Yusuf to share the question answers. But to all the participants, please direct your questions to Kaifeng. If you have some specifically for him, then if he wants to leave, that's perfectly fine. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Anika. But there were 2 questions which Kaifeng and Professor Fang has already addressed. A couple of questions that I have received separately through my student group. One of the student participant has asked a question which I seems is also something that we were interested in learning more about, is regarding the discourse when an editor talks about aligning with the journal's discourse. What exactly do they mean? Is it about the theoretical contribution that the journal has been doing in the past few years towards promoting a particular grand theory, or is it related to something else? Because for early career researchers, this might be a challenging and daunting job to understand what exactly is the discourse and how they can contribute in favor or against that existing discourse. So this is open to all the editors, and I think it would be great if we have contribution from all our speakers here.
Sure. Thanks for the question. I think I can start it first, and since I'm leaving pretty soon. Usually EIC had a good sense in terms of what kind of journal should be published in the PSAC or in HRM. For example, if this is a pure strategy research focusing on merge acquisition, and you send it to PSAC, apparently this is not appropriate. And sometimes we receive the firm level, CEO, or diversity with the TMT team, how this will influence the firm outcome. I think there is a stretch there. If they really frame the paper well, they can speak to the diversity literature, which is related to people at work. So in that case, we will put this into the review process. Another thing related to that, that is commonly cause the desk rejection is whether you use the same data set before and to publish already published article. So if you use the same data set again, we really encourage the author team to submit it cover letter to explain how the paper used the data before and how the current paper is just different from papers using the same data set published somewhere else. And in that case, the EIC will talk to the specific AEs and to have a conversation to discuss the level of the overlapping and whether we can put it through the review process. Yeah, I will stop here. So Fang and Maike, maybe you have more to share with the audience.
Yeah, thank you, Kaifeng. For HRM, it's mainly looking at the subject matter and the way you treat the subject matter. For example, employee voice. That can be studied from the human resource management perspective, can also be studied from the psychology or organizational behavior perspective, and from the industrial relations angle. So the industrial relations angle is more like focusing on the collective voice, and the role of trade union will be important, for example, right? And for human resource management, we will pay more attention to types of HRM practices that will lead to employee voice or silence. While from the OB angle, it may be more looking at the individual's personality and the way the workplace, the climate, etc. Right? So there are different treatments. Of course, there are still some overlap. But if you're talking about employee voice or studying employee voice and target an HRM journal, but side completely from OB journals, OB studies, that is not quite suitable, right? So it's a matter of how you cook it. It's like cooking a dish. What kind of flavor you want to cook it, yeah? So that's the kind of main gist. And I was trying to, while Kaifeng was talking, I was trying to copy and paste the part of the author's guideline of HRM onto the question and answer box, but I think it was too long and it wouldn't allow me to paste completely. So that it actually explains that if you're looking at if you have for example, if it's a quantitative paper and if you have a conceptual model and the left-hand side and the mediator has no HRM practices in it, then most likely it will not be considered. Yeah. But sometimes there is a kind of blurred line, and sometimes there are very good OB papers, and it can be tricky to have a stronger HRM flavor, and we will send it out for review. But if the paper is quite poor and is also totally OB oriented, we will reject it. Because to ask you to change to the HRM direction will be a waste of your effort. It's better off that you submit to a OB journal. So actually, we maintain a higher desk rejection rate. Unlike personal psychology, we maintain quite a high desk rejection rate in order so that you don't have to kind of wait for a couple of months before this decision is made. Thank you.
Yeah, I completely agree with what has been said. And so connecting to the discourse, I think that it can be answered with three questions. The first one is, what do we know already? And as Fang stressed, that what we know needs to be at the level of your focus. So either you focus on the organizational level or individual level, but you need to choose. What is your focus so what do we know in the literature? What do we not know? And then where do we go from there?
All right, this was actually thought provoking. One more query that I have received from one of the participants is pertaining to the struggle that they are facing with respect to the response to the reviewers. What they have mentioned is quite often they receive feedback from the reviewers which are contrary to each other's, probably because they are anonymous reviewers and they are sending their comments to the editor, which are finally compiled and shared with the with the authors. So their question is pertaining to what makes a revision and response letter stand out, and what are the common structure and tones that they would be recommended to follow in order to efficiently cater to the contrary views that anonymous reviewers are coming up for a particular paper that they have submitted in the reputed journals like HRMJ and IJHR.
Shall I start, Fang? Yeah,
Please, please.
for
I should
me,
not be
yeah, we should change roles. For
yeah,
me, the reviewers are not judges. They are there to help and to support. And in fact, it could lead to a situation where they provide feedback that appears to be contradictory. Whatever the reviewers say, it's not that you have to do it. These are recommendations, and you need to, as an author, you need to reflect and to deal with it. And if you disagree with the reviewer, that's okay. But you need to argue and provide good arguments why you disagree and why you chose a different strategy. And you need to be convincing when you do
yeah.
that. There might be extreme cases. So I would expect the associate editor, in fact, to find these contradictions in the reviews and then to give guidance. But if it should happen that this is missing, it could be an option to contact the editor who is dealing with your paper in order to ask and to say, we have two options. We're not quite sure how to do it. There are good arguments for the first one, good arguments for the second. We would go for the first one. Do you agree? So, and then you would have a backup. So that could also be a way forward.
Absolutely. Professor Fang, would you like to add anything else to this?
Yes, Maike was absolutely right. Just wanted to add is that sometimes reviewers are wrong, and the associate editor will be the judge. And sometimes the reviewers, they are not very knowledgeable because it is very hard to find good reviewers willing to review. So, and we also want to create opportunity for young scholars or new scholars to develop their profile and the review experience. So therefore, sometimes their reviews are not as thorough or as informative as it should be. Then they may recommend except or minor revision, while the more experienced reviewers will have much more substantive comments and more serious. And the associate editor normally will lean towards the more experienced reviewers. So that's why sometimes authors got very upset to say, one reviewer already said that except, but that reviewer probably is just a PhD student and have not had a huge amount of experience about the field yet. But some PhD students can also do excellent reviews. So but sometimes topics are very difficult and it requires, for example, employee voice. It is such a well-trodden field, right? So you really need to know the three fields, or at least one very clear field, to make informed judgment. So that's the kind of situation. But also, sometimes if the reviewer's comment may seem very outrageous to you, but calm down, read it again and again. And I mean, I have been rejected so many times by reviewers and by editors, but I always find reading the reviewer's comment useful. Even when they're wrong, I will question myself, how could I write in such a way that create the wrong impression to the reviewers? So it forced me to write more clearly. And even sometimes, whatever comments reviewer give, you can always draw nutrition from it. So if you take on that positive mindset, your life will be much more pleasant, and your revising and your revision of the paper will be so much more pleasant and productive. And sometimes if the reviewer's comments cannot be accommodated, and if you feel that you can get away with it without accommodating it, try to acknowledge it as a limitation, if possible. Because it's always good to compromise a little bit. Unless it is something wrong, blatantly wrong, suggested by the reviewer. Otherwise, always review is also a win-win situation, a negotiation process. Yeah. And reviewers are there to learn as well. So it pays to explain yourself more clearly, to justify what you do more convincingly, and whatever you cannot do in the main paper, acknowledge it as limitation and call for future research direction.
Indeed. Very, very, very insightful. I think what Professor Maike and Fang has just added, probably these are some of the questions that most of us come across, and often they are unanswered. But thanks to this webinar, at least we were looking into these important yet very relevant issues that quite often are not discussed because either we're hesitant to ask the editor and reach out to them if there is any concern. I would leave it to Yang and Anika to put forth a conclusion to today's webinar. And it was really great to have and to find a response to these questions, which have so far remained unanswered because we couldn't find a better platform to discuss them in details. So thank you once again, Professor Maike and Professor Fang.
Thank you so much. Can I just add one quick comment?
Absolutely.
Is that according to a author published a paper in, I think, Harvard Business Review or another journal, because I only just suddenly thought about it, and they found that the average revise and resubmit of a paper is 6.7 times. So that means we may be rejected several times, or at least revised 2-3 times, because most journals would not allow you to revise more than 3 times, right? And so that means that your paper is likely to be rejected 2-3 times before it gets accepted. But each time you revise and resubmit, your paper gets stronger in general, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Jing can take the floor to conclude the webinar.
Okay, thank you, Anika and Yusuf, and our great panelists. Especially thank you very much for our distinguished speakers for sharing your wisdom with our participants about what our field needs and how to publish in HRM, PSEC, HRMJ, and IGHRM. I'm sure our participants has know more about how to contribute to our field, especially in the 4 prestige HR journals. And we also wish to extend our gratitude to all the participants for your active engagement. One more thing we'd like to mention is that in the last year, AOM HR division set a goal to support the career development of HR scholars in all stages. And this year, maybe you have noticed that HR division has organized multiple activities regarding high quality publishing, innovative teaching, and how to make great practical implications. That said, we are committed to continuing this series of webinars and workshops on various topics in HRM. Please stay connected and keep an eye on the HR division's AOM page and LinkedIn for upcoming events. Also, if you have any suggestions for the topics in future events, please let us know. And if you are a doctoral student, you are welcome to join HR division as a student representative. And if you are a professor, please consider joining us as an ambassador. Both will be rewarding experience in your career. And thank you again for Professor Fang, Professor Maike, and also Yusuf and for your sharing and organizing, and for the participants' engagement. And looking forward to meeting you all online and in person.
Thank you again for organizing it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Fang. Also, this is quite late in Australia. We are very grateful.
Yeah.
Maike, early morning. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And look forward.
Thank
We
you.
will share the
Thank
recording
you.
soon with you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.